They've been described as an unlikely band of heroes, a group of wayward teenagers constantly in trouble with the police in their hometown of Armidale. But last month, the reputations of these young men changed forever when they volunteered to help a group of isolated farmers whose northern New South Wales properties had been devastated in the January floods. It was an unusual coming together, but one that has produced extraordinary results. Caro Meldrum Hannah reports.
It's 6 a.m. in the northern New South Wales town of Mingoola.
Yeah, good morning. Sunshine, the birds are singing, it's going to be a cracking day.
For these teenage boys, it's the start of a long, hard day of manual labour, and they wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
You ever lying in a swag at night and go, oh, shit, I wish I was back at school?
No, I'd stay, live up here.
This is a stark change of life for these boys, who, back in their hometown of Armidale, are known as troublemakers and misfits. But here in the heart of the far northern tablelands, they're known as saviours.
OK, time to go to the fencing wall. Righto, we right? So get your shit, let's make sure we got all the fencing stuff in the truck. Griffo, Mikey, can you make sure that happens?
In 2005, youth worker Bernie Shakeshaft set up the Backtrack Boys program in Armidale in response to the growing number of local boys falling out of school and into a life of crime and antisocial behaviour. What the boys needed were practical skills to make them employable, but they also needed someone who cared.
Many of the boys are from single-parent families, or if they're not from single-parent families, they have very few significant males in their lives. Schooling, I guess that's all fairly similar as well. It's not a place where they thrive. A lot of long-term suspensions, dropping out of school early. I guess we're all aware of how young Indigenous kids are dropping out of school, so they're certainly the kids that we're working with. They seem to be those boys that just not working out in other areas, so different organisations can't pick them up. So a lot of kids come to us through juvenile justice or the police. What do you think the cops would think if they could see you fellas out there in the middle of them paddocks when it's 40 degrees, busting your asses, helping other people? Has anyone been in trouble since they've been here?
Shocked.
I don't think they believe that the boys would be doing this.
They've been taking some crazy new type of drug.
When calls were made for volunteers to help with the flood clean-up, the Backtrack Boys wasted no time in putting their hands up. They wanted to go to Queensland until it was suggested there was work to be done much closer to home.
I said, you don't need to go to Queensland. There are some villages in our own community close to us that are desperately looking for that assistance.
The small rural communities of Mingoola and Bonshaw, settled on rich agricultural land, also suffered major devastation from the January floods. While the focus was on the unfolding flood crisis in Queensland, their cries for help went largely unnoticed.
When we first drove in, I remember looking at these bridges, half bridges washed away, and just going, you've got to be kidding, how does water have such a powerful effect on a community? These guys were, I think, whether depression's the right word or something, but really felt left out and on their own.
Hey guys.
Hey Joe.
There you go.
Hey Joe.
Local farmers like John Ray and his partner Jill Bockman felt very much alone.
We felt we were completely forgotten here, to be honest. We had no warning, we had nothing on the radio, and it was just virtually people up the rivers were ringing and saying, it's a lot of water coming.
Their prize-winning red pole cattle stud, Mingoola Station, was one of the first hit by the floodwaters. While John Ray quickly moved equipment, Jill tried to move the cattle to higher ground, a decision that almost cost her her life.
The force of the water forced them into the fences that were underwater, and so they all started to scramble and they looked like they were going to drown. And by this stage we were up to our necks in water.
I was running down the bank then and frantic, not knowing what I was going to do with Jill, and then I had an asthma attack and went belly up on the bank. So, and I didn't see, I just remembered seeing them floating off still down the river, probably a couple 100 metres out, and nothing I could do. I was just frantic. I remember saying, I love you, somebody help.
Miraculously, Jill and her precious cattle managed to swim to safety. The next day, the damage to their property was heartbreaking. What did you see?
Devastation.
Complete devastation.
Yeah. We've lost $60,000 to $70,000 worth of hay. That's our income for the next 6 months.
Over the coming weeks, John Ray and Jill Bockman expected to be part of the coordinated volunteer response, but they were never included. Until one day...
I think it was one of the neighbours said that they had some young fellas coming up from Armidale. We're really happy with the work. Yeah, it's really a big help, because you understand the problems we've got with this flood and the amount of work. We just sort of can't handle it all on our own. So
the Backtrack boys made an immediate impact.
We want some of the boys to come down the river and give us a hand to try and retrieve some. We've got fuel tanks up in the trees, and we've got a heap of pallets that went floated away with all the hay. So we've
got some boys that love climbing trees.
Actually, all our boundary fences along the road were all on the ground, and they, for 2 days, they pulled all the debris off those, stood them up, restrained them, and made those paddocks stock-proof for us.
How long would that have taken you to do?
Oh, 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah.
So you got the work of 2 or 3 weeks done in 2 days by those boys?
With those boys.
Across the river, Richard Magner and his wife Jodie are waiting for the boys to arrive. They've been farming this 2,500-acre stretch of land in Mingoola for the past 20 years. Their property, Soverington, also straddles the Queensland-New South Wales border. They too received no warning, and overnight their farm was stripped bare. They've lost millions.
Things were just destroyed everywhere, crops down, flattened, pumpkins, because it's our main vegetable crop. They're strung up trees, up irrigations. I believe people have even found our pumpkins in Texas, which is a good 100 kilometres away.
What did you think when they first turned up here to your property, to your home, to help you?
John said she put the keys to the car out.
Well, I wasn't giving them a chance to take off back to Armidale in a very big hurry, but it was strange to see, because we go into Tenterfield and we have a mix of young boys the same, and you see that every day, that they're up to mischief. They're always in trouble, and yet out here they're a blessing. Like, they have not stopped working. They're strong, and they just keep going. In 42-degree temperature heat, you don't see many people out working in that, and they've shown themselves to be amazing men.
I don't think I've seen a farmer yet without a tear in his eye, or, someone from the farm, the wife or whatever, talking to us going, it's having an emotional impact on those guys. One of the fellas was actually crying there when we were on the thing, saying, I just can't believe these kids that have come from such tough backgrounds, you can see that in those boys, are out here helping us. It makes it easy to get up and keep going.
Met a couple of boys and started getting a bit of mischief. Yeah.
What kind of mischief?
Reckless behaviour, bit of stealing from shops, and a bit of malicious damage, but never really got charged with malicious damage. Yeah, it was just a caution what I got.
Just petty stuff really, but it's still, you get in trouble for it, and they're well known sort of in their ways, but giving them a name coming out here, that's a good thing, I reckon, hey.
I'd like to thank you all for turning up tonight. This is just an informal gathering.
Tonight's barbecue at the Mingoola Town Hall isn't just a social event. These farmers are pushing ahead with a plan, lobbying the New South Wales government to match the amount of disaster relief funding being offered by other states. Despite being declared a natural disaster zone by the New South Wales Premier Christina Keneally, the state government is offering a one-off Class C recovery grant of just $15,000. Victoria, Western Australia, Tasmania and Queensland have all lifted their recovery grants to $25,000.
It's just disappointment, absolute disappointment that the state can't come in and match everyone else. I mean, we're just as important as everyone else.
The thing that's probably made me angry is I think the state Labor government's probably gone to sleep. We've got an election in a month. It's not looking good for them. But the other side hasn't come out and said, look, guys, you know, if we get elected, retrospectively we'll bump this up to, 25. So, they're all fine to turn up now and get their photo taken with the freak show, because it's all devastation. But, don't come out here unless you bring in some good news.
I mean, nobody knows where Mingoola or Bonshore is, and even with this, nobody knows what we do down here, the big farming community we have. Farmers are forgotten, especially just this section of New South Wales.
These boys, some would say, have been forgotten really all of their lives.
That's probably true, and it is true to think that, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but they're here for us, and I suppose we haven't been there for them. And that's the truth, and people haven't been there for them.
The shared feeling of being forgotten has forged a unique bond between these two very different groups.
Nothing else. We've lifted the self-esteem of those boys. We've shown them what they're capable of and what they can do. Not many of these boys would have had people come up and give them job offers, nearly brings me to tears thinking about that stuff. It's just, what a wonderful opportunity for us out of such a, terrible thing that's happened.
Tell us about the boys in the group.
Well, they're really good mates, I really like them. Best mates I ever had in my life, yeah. They're really good. I like them a lot.
They become like family.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
We need you here. You're part of the team, yeah?
You have been described as the kid whisperer to me.
Dear, look, I don't know about that. I believe in the boys.
100.
And when I see them succeeding and, the number of boys we've got into jobs and the opportunities and looking at where they are now, those boys 3 or 4 years down the track with the first bunch, these guys are just getting there faster. Kid whisperer, I don't know, we're doing more yelling than whispering, I reckon, out here. Can't wait for that old rooster to crow in the morning, eh?
I'm sure the Backtrack boys have now put Mingoola and Bonshore on everyone's radar. Caro Meldrum Hannah reporting.